Talking with famous people.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Talking with Famous People. I'm host Eric, and today I want to take you on something of a storied adventure, which is to say, I want to leave for my grandchildren posterity, lots of posterity. I want to gather a big bag full of it and leave it for them. So, as a consequence, I've decided to provide for those future descendants that I don't know a little bit about my autobiography. Now, this isn't going to be exciting probably for the average viewer. I'm just recapping some basic facts from my life when I was younger, just sort of as an archival record, so, I'll try to move quickly. Please bear with me. We're going to start at the first day of life, that is to say, my birthday, April 27th, 1971. And you can see here, I've got documented some of what happened on that day. Born April 27th, 1971. When I emerged from my mother, I was covered in goo and rather unsettled. But I got my bearings quickly enough, commended the doctor on his competent if unspectacular work, patted my mother reassuringly, completed all the necessary paperwork to leave the hospital, purchased a horse, and made my way to Arizona. So, it was a busy first day. Probably resonates with a lot of you. I'm sure you guys have similar experiences. I didn't want to waste any time. I'm an ENTP, so I'm a little impatient. So let's just go straight ahead to... they wanted to keep me in one of those boxes in the warming room, and I was just like, hell no, I got shit to do. So anyway, once I got the horse, I headed off towards Arizona. It's important to make good use of your time right away. There's no reason in delaying, right? So April 28th, 1971, I did jump over the Grand Canyon on horseback. People told me, they're like, no horse can leap that far. But I had good horse sense, horse buy-in sense, as they say, a good sense for horses. And I had picked a good one. And I also gave it a really inspiring pep talk. And so as a consequence, I was in fact able to clear the Grand Canyon. That was, it's not raising the dead, but it's certainly, I felt pretty proud of myself, given that I was 1 day old. Now let's go on up to the next thing here. Let's go up to the next year. I haven't had a chance to fill in all the other details from my early childhood, but let's look here at this one. This is nice. This was one of my prouder moments. I really feel like I did something good here. I saved Cosmopolitan magazine. It was March 3rd, 1972. Cosmo was in trouble. The formula wasn't working anymore. Their April 12th edition in 1972 had hit all the standard tropes that the magazine had at the time, right? How to pan for gold, which mop is best, and is that hat too big for your head? Yet, almost no women had purchased any copies of this magazine. Subscriptions had fallen off down 40%. So, obviously, I wasn't thinking about that. I was hiking in the St. Gabriel Mountains on a cool early spring morning, bearing a Polaroid camera and my trusty walking stick. I pushed through the wild sage and bush mallow, hoping to snap a shot of the rare spotted California raccoon. I paused at a vista and heard a creature wrestling through the leaves down and to my left, near a small stream. So I quietly worked my way towards the water, then knelt and raised my camera. But abruptly, a slender woman in a bright red suit stepped through the bush. "Oh, hello," I said, slightly embarrassed. I rose and brushed the leaves from my pant legs. "Thought you were a spotted raccoon." "No," said the woman. "I'm famed Cosmo editor Helen Gurley Brown." "And I am host Eric. What you doing way out here?" I asked. "Panning for gold," she sighed. "And soul searching." Sounds serious. "Oh, host Eric, it's my magazine. Women just aren't buying it anymore. I'm afraid we're going bankrupt." I mused. "Have you thought about sexing things up a bit? I recently wrote a little column for my pet grooming newsletter, and my women readers really seem to enjoy it. I have a copy of it here in my pocket if you'd like to take a look." So I handed her the paper, and she read out loud, 10 surprising tips to drive your man wild in bed. Anyhow, the very next month, Cosmo had an article featured on the cover with that exact title. And I guess it worked pretty well because the magazine is still in business today and providing much, much useful information about what guys like in bed, which is, what could you want to know more than that? I don't know. We are in the 1972. Well, let's scoot ahead 1974 and see what happened. Well, it was 1974, and I did, in fact, on that day, I forewent the pie. Will had purchased several pies that day, or rather his mother had, but I didn't want any, so I forewent the pie, and everything since has been amazing. So it's important to remember as well in your own life to forego the pie whenever possible. Now let's move forward. I think we have time for one more. What do we have here? 1976. Okay, this was a good day for me. This was a really good day. May 4th, 1976, I did launch the Civil Rights Movement. I had boarded a bus in Alabama to get to a nearby Stuckey's where I intended to eat a late breakfast. And I dropped my coins in the fare box and sat behind a middle-aged black lady. "What up?" said I, with an upward head nod to indicate greeting. "Oh, nothing much," she said. It was then that something a little bit shocking happened. "Hey," interrupted the bus driver, "you have to sit back there, lady, because you're a black person." So I leaned over and I said to the lady, I'm like, "Hey, fuck that guy, dude. You should totally just stay sitting right here." And the rest, as they say, is just ink in the history books. You're welcome, America. Do we have time for one more? I think we might. Let's see. That's not 76. Oh, 1978. Okay, well, let's see what happened in 1978. Aha, this was a good day, too. I remember this one. April 6, 1978. I invented cheese. It was a dreary afternoon when I spilled some milk onto a calf's stomach I happened to have sitting on the counter. And that's how I invented cheese. So these are just some of the... I actually have a number of different accomplishments that I've achieved early in life, a lot of which have been forgotten. Not everybody remembers all of the various things that I did, back in 1978, 1976. It was a while ago, so it's understandable they forget who was responsible for that. But prior to that, there wasn't any cheese. It just didn't exist. So if you look here, in 1979, now at this point I'm 8 years old, so I'm starting to really grow into my abilities, I guess. In 1978, early part of 1979, there simply was no playful banter. I introduced the concept in 1979. And, for other people my age, folks of my generation, it's easy to remember a time when people only bantered seriously, angrily, or in a fashion expressing nostalgic longing. This sounds odd to modern ears, but it was a different time, a time when playfulness was reserved for matters of play. Anyhow, I was one afternoon bantering with a friend, and together we longed for things from the past. When he heaved a wistful sigh for the ways of old California, I couldn't help it. A gold-panning joke leapt from my mouth before I could gauge it. Thus did I bear playful banter from my womb. Nowadays, I see the friendly ribbon of the morning news team, and my sighs are anything but wistful. In fact, it was shortly after the event detailed here that I figured out how to sigh contentedly. But that's a story for another day. And shockingly, I think we have time for one more. I know I keep saying we're going to run out of time here, but I'm feeling like we have time for one more. And this one is a big one. We're going to end on this one because I think it's serious enough that we can enjoy just how significant an impact I made in these people's lives. Okay, it was September 7, 1980, when I did in fact go to Egypt and led the Isrealites to freedom. Jewish folk, you are welcome. I arrived in Cairo early on a Tuesday. I had come by a trade caravan from Constantinople on a tourist visa and was anxious to see the city. So I checked into my room at the Nefertiti's Luxury Suites Inn, deposited my bags, and strolled downtown to peruse the exotic wares of the bazaar. "Strauss, is that you?" I turned, startled to hear my own name. "Why, Bernie Whites, you old dog. Fancy seeing you here in Cairo." But Egypt, it turned out, was treating my old pal quite shabbily indeed. Slavery? I gasped. That's terrible. Later that evening, I made my way to the encampment wherein the Israelites were housed and hid behind a bush there until all the Israelites came out to play mahjong. Then I stepped out from my hiding spot, rose my arms in the air, and said, "You are the chosen people to win a fabulous prize." Yes, that's right. Each of you here has been randomly selected as a winner. Now grab a few of your most important personal items and follow me. So the Israelites and I walked out past the guards and into the rugged desert. I had explained to the guards about the prizes when I entered the compound so they didn't give us any trouble. "I'm going to save us. I'm going to get you all out of here. Line up single file and follow me to freedom." "He's going to save us," enthused a dimpled, warm-faced woman with long braided hair. "But we'll never make it across that desert alive without provisions," lamented Rabbi Lieberstein. "Don't worry," I reassured. "I know a shortcut. It cuts past all the desert for a secret tunnel." And we arrived in Canaan about 4 hours later. "But wait," insisted a soft-spoken young scholar. "Where are our prizes?" Well, I can assure you, friends, I managed to put together a couple little prize packages for them before I left. I went to the 99-cent store, and, you can get some nice stuff there. If you look, there's some good stuff, and I think they were happy with it, and it didn't cost me too much, and they had their freedom, and they couldn't accuse me of lying about the prizes at that point. So anyway, that's my early life autobiography through 1980 or so. Obviously, I need to go back and fill in some holes of some other details, some other events that I've experienced that I, maybe forgot for a little while, and then they come back to me in a dream or something. So anyway, thank you very much for watching my autobiography here. And remember, it's important to leave a history of your own life for your grandchildren. Be honest, be direct, be forthright, be sincere. That's the only way to do it. Follow my example. Host Eric from Talking with Famous People. Thank you so much for watching.
Talking with famous people.